great panelist speaker. We're going to speak and we're going to be respectful to one another. We're going to listen, even to vendors, because vendors have issues too. We all have some stuff, right? We all get a little discouraged sometimes. We all become ill sometimes. We all have medical issues, and some of us even have mental issues. So today we just want to fill this house with knowledge and that you walk away with wisdom and understanding. So again, on behalf of our bishop, Bishop Krista E. Finch, and his lovely wife, we welcome you. We welcome you because we are not and we will not be a church of four walls. We believe in the old church when the church was the social service of the community, and that's what we are. So we welcome you, and I will not hold you up any longer as we present to you Jessica Torrente.
Okay, good morning. Such a pleasure to be here on this Saturday morning. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Jessica Torrente. I'm the Division Chief of Breast Imaging and Intervention at Maimonides Cancer Center in Brooklyn. And Ms. Arita Guy asked me here this morning to come and speak with you all about breast health, mammography, and breast cancer screening. Okay, so oh, it's me on there. Okay, so I can see my slides. Okay, next slide. So really today we're just going to cover some general breast cancer information. We're going to talk about what is breast cancer. We're going to talk about the risk factors, prevention, some screening and early detection strategies, and guidelines and recommendations. Next slide. So what is breast cancer? Basically, it is when a normal breast cell in the body kind of goes rogue and it starts multiplying on itself. So it's one type of cell, it becomes like clones, and then it causes a tumor to grow. There's basically two different types, invasive and non-invasive breast cancer. That's called DCIS. This is just a little schematic showing kind of like the inside of the breast tissue looking from the side. So these little tube areas that are on the bottom are basically the ducts. They're called the breast ducts. And inside there is where these abnormal cells can start to grow. If they grow, stay within the ducts themselves, and that is called a non-invasive breast cancer, or DCIS. And then the cells can also break out of those, and that's when it starts to grow into the breast tissue. So when these abnormal cells are just contained within the ducts, that's called DCIS, and that's really a stage 0. It's considered to be a very early breast cancer and non-life-threatening. Invasive breast cancer is when those cells have broken out of the ducts, like that little cartoon showed. This is really the most common type that is diagnosed, and this is really the one that can be life-threatening because it can leave the breast and go to other parts of the body. So it's the second most common type of cancer in women after skin cancer. Almost 300,000 new cases of invasive breast cancer will be diagnosed in America, about 55,000 cases of DCIS, and approximately 44,000 women will die of breast cancer. It's the second leading cause of death from cancer after lung cancer. So we have a saying, which is basically that everyone knows someone who has been touched by breast cancer. Approximately 1 in 8 to 1 in 9 women, depending on the population, will develop breast cancer in their lifetime. We are always, showing people in the media, celebrities, that come forth and share their stories with this disease to help spread awareness. So basically, the two main risk factors for breast cancer are those which are really outside of our control. It is being a woman and getting older. And the majority of people who develop breast cancer really have no other risk factors other than those. So some soft risk factors are heavier alcohol consumption, being overweight, people who go on hormone replacement therapy, and not having any children, those soft risk factors. Some of the stronger risk factors mainly are anyone who is diagnosed with a genetic mutation, the most common ones being BRCA, also called BRCA, having a strong family history of breast cancer. If you had any type of cancer when you were a child or an adolescent requiring radiation therapy to the chest, and there are different racial and ethnic disparities with how much breast cancer occurs in those populations. But I want to kind of focus that only 10% of breast cancer comes from one of these high-risk categories. The vast majority is just average risk women. So this is really why screening with mammography saves lives. Next slide. So Black and Ashkenazi Jewish women are at probably the higher risk of diagnosis at an earlier age. This is due to a higher likelihood of genetic mutations, and also, in general, the mortality in America is higher for all minority women, Black, Asian, and Latina, and when compared to non-Hispanics, white people. So mortality is about 39% in Black women when compared to white women, and all minority women are more likely to be diagnosed under age 50. And minority women are also much more likely to die under age 50. And we can skip the next slide. Thank you. So this has to do really with a multitude of issues. A lot of it is access. In certain communities, there is basically what is called a healthcare desert, where there is not access to high-quality medical care. Also learning about what the guidelines are, and this also includes language barriers. Also financial reasons, access to healthcare insurance. And then, as we said before, having biological factors, with triple-negative breast cancers also being more common in women younger than 40, and in also minority populations. Next slide. So importantly, the American Cancer Society and the Society of Breast Imaging have made some new guidelines, basically to bring it forward that even at a young age, you should have a discussion with your doctor regarding what might be your personal risk for breast cancer, so that you can think about when is it the most appropriate time for you to start screening. And this would be an assessment of family history. There is genetic counseling and testing. Generally speaking, we say mammography should begin at age 40, and some people can benefit from additional screening modalities. So as far as prevention, as with most cancers, really the most beneficial things are just the things that keep you healthy in general, having a varied and healthy diet, trying to have some exercise, limiting alcohol, and then breastfeeding does seem to be protective, as well as stopping smoking, and also just being engaged in your health, seeing your doctor, and staying on top of your health, generally speaking. So basically, it's really that too much estrogen is what is causing these things. So like alcohol can have an estrogen-like effect. Being very overweight has an estrogen-like effect. So all of those things is why those are kind of soft risk factors, because they act to increase estrogen in the body. Next slide. So really, you are your own best weapon against breast cancer. Know your breasts. Try to do your monthly self-exams. We have some material in the back on how to do that. The vast majority of breast lumps are not cancer, and please, if you see something, say something, talk to your doctor if you notice any changes. Next slide. So basically, mammography is a dedicated screening exam for the breast. Next slide. The importance of doing it is because there is a very large discrepancy between the survival rates of people who are diagnosed at an earlier stage versus a late stage. And this is why screening mammography is so important. Next slide. There is a sojourn time or a silent time where we can detect breast cancer on a mammogram before it becomes visible or before you can feel a lump. And that's really our goal. Next slide. So as we said, it is a dedicated X-ray study of the breasts. When you have a screening mammogram, that means that you have nothing wrong with you. You don't feel anything, you're not having a concern. You still need your screening mammogram. Next slide. This is what a mammogram looks like. So when you come in and you get your screening mammogram, this is what we do. We take 4 pictures, 2 of each side. Next slide. What about all that radiation? So it's a very minimal dose of radiation. It is about the same dose of radiation that you get if you fly cross country. I think all of us would agree we would be happy to get on a plane and fly to California or fly somewhere else. So let's get our mammograms. Really, you have to ask yourself, what is the risk and what is my benefit? Next slide. So basically, the main guideline is to begin screening mammography at the age of 40. There is some controversy about different countries and what they do and when to start, 40 versus 50, but there's been a lot of studies done, and basically starting at 40 just saves the largest number of lives. A lot of these other things have to do with cost savings and kind of trying to skim the data a little bit, but really beginning at 40 is what's going to save the most number of people. Next slide. A high-risk category person sometimes may have to start mammography a little bit earlier and may have to involve additional screening modalities such as ultrasound or MRI. Next slide. And there's also some controversy about when we should stop screening women for breast cancer. The original trials just did not invite women over age 74 to participate. That is it. It was not because no one thought that women in their 70s and 80s wouldn't benefit, but these trials were done in Sweden in the 60s and 70s, and they were just, that's the population that they invited to screen. But really, there's no reason to think that a mammogram would not be effective in later older women, and I think it's very reasonable to think how your general health is doing, to think about if that's something that you want to do for yourself or your family members. Next slide. So a screening mammogram is going to be read by a radiologist, like me. Once I generate a report, I'm going to say that this looks normal, or I'm going to say it looks abnormal, or maybe I detect a change when I compare it to your study from the previous year. Then you're going to get a lay letter in the mail letting you know, is it normal or abnormal? Your doctor is going to get a full report. And if we see anything abnormal or we see a change, then you become what's called a callback. And you're going to come back to our center, and we would do extra pictures and ultrasound, and you will get same-day results at Maimonides, anyway. So there are some newer technologies that I'd like for you to be aware of. So really the biggest advance, I would say, in the past decade with mammography has been the introduction of what's called 3D mammography or tomosynthesis. We are able to detect more breast cancers. It has a lower false positive, so less likely we're going to call you back for something that is not a problem. There's also been the development of artificial intelligence, which is called CAD, or computer-assisted detection in mammography, and this is the standard of care at our facility. Next slide. Another thing that gets a lot of attention in the press that I wanted to address is breast density. So basically, not all breasts are the same. And there's degreeing amounts of fat versus glandular tissue on the mammogram, and this is really something that's only seen on the mammogram. And if you have dense breasts, then we would like to, we typically recommend to add an ultrasound as part of your screening. Next slide. This is just a little picture showing the difference between dense breasts. So all the way to the left is a fattier breast. And then as we go, these are the 4 categories of how much dense breast tissue can be in there versus fat. So all the way to the right is very, very dense tissue. And it's problematic sometimes because the tissue is white, but the cancer also shows up as white. Next slide. So it's also considered an independent risk factor for cancer. It is common. Now, because of all of these changes, it's now become the law of the land. All states have to disclose to patients who get mammography if they have dense breasts and what their options are moving forward. So now this is mandated by MQSA, which is our credentialing body, and the FDA. Next slide. So we like to say it's like having a little seal that's out in the snow. How are you going to find that little seal in the snow? Next slide. So I'm going to show you. So there's the cancer in this breast, fatty breast, and you can see the cancer is not that hard to see. A mass, it's white. Next slide. This is a dense breast. There is a cancer in this breast too. Much more difficult to see. When we add an ultrasound, next slide, that's what it looks like on the ultrasound. Very easy to see. So that's why if you have dense breasts, it's important to add this extra test. Next slide. So what if you need a biopsy? Now, almost all biopsies can be done without surgery. It is a minimally invasive procedure done in the office. You get a little numbing medicine. We use a small needle to make a diagnosis. Next slide. So if ever someone says, I see something on your mammogram, and they say we have to take you to surgery right away, I would question that. That's not really the standard of care. We like to make a diagnosis before going on to having a big procedure to be sure that your plan is the plan that's right for you. So remember, it's your body and you always have a right to ask questions. Next slide. Also, experience matters. Interpretation should be done by an experienced radiologist, someone who reads a high volume of mammography. And lots of studies have shown that people who are experts and have subspecialty training, especially with these higher tech exams, it makes a big difference. And just to kind of promote us, all of us radiologists at Maimonides, we are all subspecialty trained. In my entire career, all I have ever done is read mammograms and ultrasounds. Next slide. So remember that you are your best health advocate. I really encourage dialogue between you and your healthcare providers. It's important to get your annual mammogram, and where you get your mammogram matters. Thank you so much for your attention.
Well, our next guest, I can't even come behind that. Only thing I can say is really it's just remember, take care of yourself and know your body. I'm also sure that there's a mental component when I go in this but I'm so loud. And I guess I will. So, yes, so I'm sure that there's a mental health component when you're dealing with people who are told this kind of diagnosis. Is there any way, because I come from working with teams of people, it's important. Do you recommend that someone sees someone if there's, there's some kind of mental disturbance when they get that kind of?
Yes, and I will say at Maimonides, we have a nurse navigator that is set up to help patients navigate through the process of getting results, especially if they have a recommendation for a biopsy, especially if they move on with a cancer diagnosis, that someone that's going to help you and be able to plug you into any type of social services, mental health services. Also, I think something that's very special about our department is that we have on-site radiologists during pretty much all, I would say 90% of our working hours. A lot of places now have gone remote, but we have maintained the old school, the doctors in the house. So if at any time anyone feels that they want to ask some questions, they want to ask questions about support, they want to talk about anything there, we are also available, and we have numerous staff, for support, because definitely it can be a shocking and overwhelming process, and it's very important to have the support that everyone needs to be able to, make your next appointment and show up and take care of yourself. So that having that structure in place is important.
Thank you for that. Our next presenter is, yes, give it up for information. Give it up for information. Give it up for applying the information. Give it up for applying the information. Thank you for your time. Next we have Lynette Lepak. She's our nurse practitioner. It's a lot of them now.
thank you for having me. Dr. Torrente really got quite in depth with breast health today. I'm just here to be a reinforcer of that. And, you know, let's do a little dementia test here. What is the #1 risk factor for breast cancer? What's the #1 risk factor? Huh? Okay. We don't have any seniors in the house. And I do see some men in the audience, and I want to say that men do get breast cancer, and it's sure a smaller percentage. Dr. Torrente could give you that. 1%.
All breast cancer diagnosed are men, but it does happen, and we see men all the time.
Yes, and how does men check their breasts? Do they have breasts to check? How are they checking that? What's going on with the men in the breast? Huh?
I don't know. Tell us how they check.
Well, there are different ways. There are different ways to discover the breast cancer, and believe it or not, a lot of times the woman would say they found a lump on the man, or the man would say they found a lump on the woman. Okay, so that's one way that lumps are discovered. Another way is that some men just say, you know, I just, you know, touched my breast, and then I felt something kind of like a little something under there. And it's not like a really pronounced lump in a lot of times, and a lot of men do workouts, and there's a lot of estrogen-containing components that a lot of young men do, and a lot of times they develop something called gynomastica, and it kind of mimics sometimes the lump, but we don't know which lump is cancer or which is not. So as men get older, just like women get older, a lot of things want to come and get you. So don't let this cancer get you. If you feel something abnormal in your breast, you know your breast tissue, and it hasn't been there, please have it checked out. A lot of times it runs in families too. I mean, if you're a man and you had a family member with breast cancer, it could have some genetics to it as well, okay? So men, just remember to check your breast. You need to do that. And for the ladies, so I've been in the breast field for over 20 years, and it's really my passion. And I've seen a lot of great stories, and I've seen a lot of sad stories. And you know, young people, especially young black women, they do die from breast cancer at a much earlier age. And it's very sad to see a young woman starting their life, or with young children, and just at the peak of their life, and then breast cancer just knocks them down. And I've seen this too many times. So I want to tell all the women here that you should be checking your breasts once a month. And there was a time when they said, you know, never mind the breast exams, just go have a mammogram. But you're young, you're not going to go have a mammogram until you're age 40, unless there's some type of a family history your doctor recommends. And don't depend on your physician to check your breasts. You know your breasts better than a physician that you may see every few months, every 6 months, once in a while. So if something really looks abnormal, you really need to check it out. Checking your breasts is not quite difficult, because you can do this even in the shower when your hands are very slippery and slopey. We do have some cards back there. I have a couple modules here where you could kind of feel what lumps feel like in your breast. And you can do that while you're showering. You could do that while you're at night in your bed instead of playing with your cell phone. Your hands are back. You can do the breast exam. So like I said, we do have some breast exam material that kind of guides you through how to check your breast. Then the other part of this is, of course, keeping up with all of your clinical needs in terms of not only getting your breast checked, but following the sequence of when you do for colonoscopy and all the other healthcare issues that we have to deal with. So I want to tell all the women in the room and the men, just remember to check your breast. It does save lives, because you would find that lump probably faster than your doctor. And please have it checked out if you do feel a lump. And if you're 40, get your mammogram. I hope everybody in this room that's 40 has had a mammogram. I'm not going to pick on anyone. Yes? Say yes. And I truly believe where you go matters. Where you have that imaging matters. We have a lot of experts, and I'm not going to advocate for Maimonides. I'm a freelancer. I did work at Maimonides at one time, but I want to tell you that sometimes some radiology places do miss lumps. I've seen it. I've seen patients come to Maimonides, and they have the eye of the tiger. And besides just looking at machinery, and there's something sometimes that just does not sit right. Either it's with the breast surgeon or the radiologist, and we have a comprehensive team there at Maimonides. So sometimes it's just something doesn't sit right, and a lot of other places may just dismiss it and say, see you in 6 months. In the meantime, within 6 months, the clock is turning. So be very careful where you go. Where you go matters, okay? And I will end here, and if you have any questions, I certainly will be happy to entertain them with Dr. Durante. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Where you go matters, right? That's what she said. And you can always get a second opinion, because that's what I was taught. And don't let the doctor push you out the office. Have a discussion. Advocate for yourself. And a lot of us in these communities, we get pushed out the office, go into those offices I call the panel office, because that's what it looks like. The panel is on the wall. So, you know, Maimonides is great. They did great work for people that I know, and I appreciate that. And checking our breasts instead of being on our cell phone. That was funny, but that was very important. That was funny, but that was very important. Because we're checking emails, but we're not checking our breasts. We're not checking our breasts, right? So we're going to go to Dr. Tassi. Yes? And he's a chiropractor. Ooh, I had a hard time this morning, Doc. Thank you. Oh, okay, oh, that's good.
I don't do good with mic, so let's do this. So just so you don't fall asleep on me, stand up for 1 second. I just want to give you a little exercise to wake you up, okay? So here's the thing. It's a short amount of time, okay? So I want to give you things you can actually leave with and apply, okay? So this is the key thing. So this is one exercise you like to show our patients. It's called the YTWL. You're going to bring your arms up like this and reach up to your fingers, palms facing each other, and you're going to tilt your head back. So front to back, your spine should be straight. But from the side, you don't want straight, you want curves. And most of us don't have the curves in our neck, especially we call that the arc of life. So this is the Y. The T is like this. Don't smack your neighbor. Bring your hands down, palms up, and just reach, squeeze back. You can hold these like 10 to 20 seconds, up to a minute. It's a good back workout for you. Just like this. Tilt your head back. If you feel nauseous or dizzy, then don't push through any pain. The W is like this. You're going to do palms facing each other. Bring your arms like this. Squeeze back. Tilt your head back like this. You guys are doing great. This is the most compliance I think I've ever had. And then the W is like this. You're going to bring your arms back and down like this. Now these are the L's actually. YTWL. One forward, one back like this. Good. Awesome. All right, have a seat. Thank you. So I'm going to go without the mic. And I want to ask you to think about this concept for yourselves. Imagine you and your family, your loved ones, living 80, 90, 100 years of quality life. What's the key word? Quality. Yeah, quality, right? Imagine a life where as you're getting older, you're able to continue to do the things you love to do. Travel. I don't know if it's shopping, go to the beach. Serve God, volunteer in your church. Maybe you want to work, you want to take care of your kids. Some of you want to take care of, grandchildren maybe. Imagine a life where as you're getting older, you're able to continue to do these things without relying on medication, right? Without being in pain. Imagine a life where as you're getting older, you actually have more energy. Do you think that's possible? You really think that's possible?
Yes.
It is possible. It is possible, but it's really not what's happening. Because if you look at the research, autism skyrocketed, right? soon it'll be about 50% of the kids in our country on the spectrum on some level. We see a lot of those kids. The reason why I'm fired up to come out and share with you today, and I really appreciate this, I've been practicing for over 22 years, speaking in the public for a long time, and I'll be honest with you. People, especially children, show up to our office now sicker than ever before. Taking more medication than ever before. One of the top prescribed drugs in females and teenagers are antidepressants. Depression, anxiety, suicide, mental health issues have skyrocketed over the last 4 years. We're actually doing I have a short amount of time right now. I do a whole workshop on mental health. We're doing it Tuesday night in our office. I do an extended version of this talk I'm going to give you right now. I'm just going to try to go like fast and hard because I want you to leave with things tonight, but today. But we do an extended version of this talk actually Monday, okay? Because, you know, your health really is your most important asset. If you think about, you know, our country, what the research shows is that half the people that are born since the year 2000, I call them kids, so 23 and under, half of them will not outlive the age of the parents. Wow. It's one of the first times ever we have actually a predicted shorter lifespan. We have major fertility issues in this country. We have an opioid addiction problem, which has led to a major heroin issue right here in New York. 79% of the people hooked right now on heroin started on an oxy. I'll give you a crazy stat right here because I saw something on Foster. A third of the kids that are in foster care right now, it's because the parents are dead, hooked, or in rehab. The number one disease category in people 65 and older are the neurodegenerative diseases, the brain disorders like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and dementia. So, you know, when I come out in groups and I ask this, is it possible to live long, active, and healthy? It is, but it's not what's happening. The United States, and listen, I love this country, but we have the sickest children and the sickest senior citizens. We're the sickest industrialized nation. That's according to the World Health Organization. So if you're dealing with the health challenge right now, or if someone in your family is dealing with the health challenge right now, there are two main reasons. It's either one or both with one main cause. Two main reasons with one main cause. It's a toxicity. Either you're taking something in that's toxic or you're deficient or deficiency. In other words, you're deficient in something that your body needs to be healthy. It's a toxicity or a deficiency caused by stress. And there are three types of stress. It's actually four. But we're going to cover the three main types of stress, okay? Normally, I go through the whole stress response, the sympathetic fight-or-flight stress response. I'm just going to cut to the chase. Genetically, we haven't changed in thousands of years. Even if you look at the last 100 years, our genes have been flatlined like this. Chronic illness has skyrocketed. They're trying to tell you it's genes. It's called epigenetics. That's the new science. That means above the genes. That means your genes are either turned on and expressed or they're not based on your lifestyle choices. So if we can go through really quick the three types of stress that put us into what's called a fight or flight state, because physiologically the same things that happen in us right now when we're under stress are the same things that happen to us physiologically when we were running from tigers. And it saves you in the short run, but if you stay stuck in chronic stress, it kills you in the long run. So what I want to do, because right now we're not running from tigers, but it's our day-to-day that actually puts us into this fight or flight, this sympathetic overdrive that shuts down resting, healing, and digestion. So here's what I can tell you. I have resources for you. Because a lot of you, hopefully, will take one or two of these recommendations that I give you, and you might say to yourself, you know what? I like this guy's haircut. I can laugh at the joke. Maybe what he's saying I can kind of relate to. You know what I mean? And I want to try a couple of these things. And you know what? You're going to leave here today, and it's amazing the information that you're going to get and that you've already gotten. And you might be inspired. You might be fired up. You came to, you know, a seminar, you go to a sermon, a workshop, and you know what? You're fired up. You get up the next day, and you say, you know what? That's it. I'm going to make health my priority. And for 9 days, you stay on track.
Yeah.
And that's the average New Year's resolution is 9 days. So I created a sheet. I was told to tell you that these QR codes on our sheet is not a scam. I'm not going to drain your bank account. This is what I was told to tell you. But I have these handouts for you with QR codes on there. There are informational videos, educational videos that I've made. You click the QR code, it gives you a lot of resources. I always say that knowledge is what? Knowledge is what? And just like knowledge is potential power, because you don't apply the knowledge, nothing changes with your quality of life. It's pray and move your feet. Churches, and I've spoken corporate, and I've done a lot of educational workshops. and you know, we have the right intention, and we all say it's all about the knowledge, and you might have the knowledge that you're supposed to work out. Maybe you have the gym membership, you have the card like hanging from your keychain. You're driving by the gym with all that knowledge. Man, with all my knowledge, if I was to go in there, but you don't take action. So I'm going to give you some quick tips when it comes to applying this, okay? Here are some quick principles. Start by adding, do not take away. It's too stressful. We're all doing things we know we shouldn't do. So it's too, if I take things away from you, you're going to say, I don't like this guy. So listen, start by adding, don't take away. Think progress, not perfection. There's a book called The Slight Edge, and what it talks about is that in 6 months or a year from now, you can just make small changes and your life can take a totally different direction. You can be in a completely different direction. And here's the thing, it's not your fault if you try to stay on track and you fail. This book right here, actually, this is what, I'll give you this book in a minute. This is, according to the research, PhD research scientists have proven that willpower doesn't work. This is what PhD science, this is what the research shows us, that only 5% of people can use willpower to stay on track with the most important aspects in our life. So you might have that intention, and you're on track for a small amount of time, and you slip, and it's not your fault. The research shows that willpower doesn't work. 95% of us cannot use willpower. What works, what the research shows does work, is what's called an immersion experience. That's why I like educational workshops, because I can immerse you in the information and what's called anchoring. You need to be reminded what to do. So I like physical anchors. I'll give you a couple of those. But what I want to do is go over the 3 types of stress. And then I want to give you a couple of lifestyle strategies that we like to educate our patients about. Hopefully you can try 1 or 2 of these things. Pick 1 or 2 things. Pick 1 or 2 things and start with that. But let's go over what are the 3 types of stress. Give me 1 type of stress. Give me 1 type of stress. So what's going to happen right now is you're going to give me examples of the things that are happening in your life. And we want to put them into the category. There's 3 categories. There's actually 4, but we're going to go over the top 3. So if you name something that's maybe stressing you out, we'll put it in that category. But the first thing I really want is the categories. So it's 3 types of stress. So just give me 1. We'll just take each one at a time. Mental, worry. Okay, good. I think emotional gets us the most. Your brain is like a muscle. You need to train it. So when it comes to emotional health, I like I am statements and gratitude. So I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy, I am healthy. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Gratitude, love, appreciation, joy, that's high vibration. That's right. Fear, resent, doubt, worry. You can't heal in low vibration. You cannot heal in low vibration. So gratitude trumps everything. But you got to get into gratitude. So when you go to bed at night, go to bed in gratitude. Think of 3 things you're grateful for. You can journal. Who here journals? Anybody write things down? Good. You got to take pen to paper, though. You got to take pen to paper and write it down, because you go from a thought and you can write it down and you can actually create that intention. You can create that. So you got to get into gratitude, love, appreciation, joy. So go to bed in gratitude and get up in gratitude. So when I get up, I don't turn my phone on. My phone's on airplane. So I'm literally laying in my bed and I'm going, thank you, God, thank you, God. I go into gratitude, thank you, thank you. I don't turn on the news. I'm not talking, I don't talk to my wife. I try not to, unless I get woken up by like my little guy. I'm trying to get into gratitude. I go doing my push-ups, and then I should start checking now. I know I should start checking, but I'm not 40 yet. But I'm not 40 yet. She said if only if you're 40. But look, you have to get into gratitude. The other thing is, you can get into gratitude by speaking it. So I like I am statements. I am healthy, I am healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy, I'm healthy. Thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you. I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. But you got to train it. Your brain's like a muscle. You can't wait till you're in that stress to figure out, all right, I got to work on my brain today. Your brain's like a muscle. Neurologically, it makes perfect sense. It's very hard to stop thinking negative thought. You got to add in positive. That's just the way we're wired. And when you're in a stress response and cortisol's high, cortisol shuts down dopamine and serotonin. Cortisol shuts down our focus hormone, and our happy hormone. And 95% of serotonin is made in your gut. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but to tie into emotion. But emotional, I think, is the toughest one. So that's a good one. You guys came out of the gate with a really good one. So emotional. What's another type of stress? Financial. Mental, financial. I put those are great answers. I put that all under emotional. You understand? So, I mean, yes, we can try to split the categories and say, well, financial, then because of financial, I can't, like, maybe, purchase certain things for my health in that way, but let's just keep that under emotional for now. Give me another category. Physical. Let's go physical. And you guys name the other 2. So let's go physical. So look, when it comes to structure, your neuromusculoskeletal system, that's the master control system. Your organs work for you to be able to move around, right? Like your blood pressure is determined on how much you move, right? So your neuromusculoskeletal system is very important, okay? So I gave you the YTWL. Front to back, your spine should be straight, but if you look at somebody's spine from the side and they lose that curve in the neck, what the research shows, it puts you into a stress response. You wouldn't even be aware. You know how they said you got to get checked and tested? They're exactly right. You wouldn't be aware if you didn't have a curve in your neck because it's not something you can feel. So what we do is stand people up against gravity. We take digital x-rays. We can see what's called the arc of life. We can see the atlas angle. That's the first bone right there. Take your pinky touch right there. That's your atlas right there, your brainstem. And what we like to educate our patients about is that the only way your body heals, it's never from the outside. It's always from within. Like if I had a person who's alive and a freshly dead cadaver, I cut the hand of a person who's alive and I cut the hand of a freshly dead cadaver, the person who's alive, what's going to happen? It's going to scab up and do what? Heal. It'll heal. What about a freshly dead cadaver? It's freshly dead, has all the same stuff we have inside of us. Is it going to heal? No. What if we gave it organic nutrition? Look, people say it's all about nutrition. I'm a certified nutritionist, but do you think a carrot on its own outside your body has the intelligence to turn into your eyeball cell? Have you ever thought about that? How do you eat food and it turns into us? So there's something called universal intelligence. I call that God. There is something organizing everything in the universe. Like science has proven that what's going on out here cannot be explained by math, physics, and chemistry alone. It just can't. So we can agree, right? There must be intelligence. And then inside of each and every one of us is a piece of that organizational intelligence. It's called an inborn or innate intelligence. It came with the package. If you ate something early, you're not going, right, spit out that enzyme. All right, beep, beep, like there are things happening inside of you. And where does that intelligence come from in your body specifically? It comes from your brain. It goes down through your spinal cord, out your nerves to every cell, tissue, and organ. And what the most up-to-date, cutting-edge research shows us is that the structure, the physical structure of your spine affects the function of your brain. The structure of your spine affects the function of your brain. So what can happen in your spine is that the joints can get stuck, and it's not even something that you feel. It's called a subluxation. That sends negative stress responses or nociceptive negative signals to the brain, cause a release in stress hormones. It puts us into this fight or flight stress response. When you're in fight or flight, it shuts down resting, healing, and digestion. When we actually work on your spine, it sends positive signals up to a part of the brain called the cerebellum and affects what's called the vagus nerve. Not like Las Vegas. But the vagus nerve is how we get the miracles in our office. And I'll tell you, the worst physical stress is gravity. When it comes to physical stress, there's macro and there's micro. People will come in all the time, we'll check them, and they'll be like, how'd this happen to me? I don't know, I just met you yesterday. I just took the extra. It's like going to the dentist for the first time, being 40 years old. Like, hey, I never heard I had to get my teeth checked. You go to the dentist, they go, oh my God, you got this problem, this problem, this problem. You go, that just happened to me. Well, if you think of dental care 130 years ago, dental care was, my teeth hurt, I'm going to drink for 2 weeks. If it doesn't go away, I'm going to go to the barber's going to pull my tooth out. That was dental care 130 years ago. That's kind of like where we're at with spinal care right now. It's just like a blind spot. When it comes to people's health, we just never heard this information. So gravity's pushing down against us, and I'll tell us the worst type of physical stress, it's like sitting's like sugar to your teeth. Yes. It's horrible. So you got to do things to counterbalance it. So the Y2WL, also they put walking up against every other exercise. And listen, I used to run, I used to jog. You know what happened? Then I banged out my knee, my hip, my back, I'm banged up. So, you know, when you walk, your spine pumps. It's called imbibition. It pumps the discs to keep your spine healthy. But if there's torque and pressure in your spine, that's what we actually specialize in our office. We want to get that moving properly and then couple that with walking. Okay, with women, you should be doing weight resistance exercise. That's really key also. But that Y2WL, I'll tell you, it's great. Do that Y2WL stress. So again, I want to give you things you can leave with. The third type of stress, you said environmental. I'll make you aware of one chemical that's on all the food that's not organic. It's called glyphosate. They spray it on all the food that's not organic. It pokes holes in your gut. It's devastating for you. So you should try to eat organic whenever possible. We actually have a company called Misfit Markets we order from. On these QR codes, I'll hand it out to you guys because I want you to leave with resources. We have a link to our lifestyle website. You can go on there and see like where we get our food from. Like my wife and I, we have a podcast with over like 50 episodes on there. It's an ask show. So it's people that ask questions and then it's answered in a much longer format. I have some other educational videos, but when it comes to making changes, I would say with nutrition, because we say environmental, there's a lot of toxins in the environment. We could go over that if you have any questions about that. But I'll tell you about glyphosate and nutrition, really when it comes to chemical stress. Start by adding, don't take away. So add 2 extra glasses of water a day. Who can do that? You know, we do a body composition analysis in our office, and we scan people, and 75% of the people dehydrated. What does every single person tell me they drink? They drink what? They drink a lot of water. Right? I drink a lot of water. Every person, but they're still dehydrated. So it might be something that you're not aware about. The other thing when it comes to nutrition, a simple little tip is fresh fiber first before any meal, fresh fiber. So don't take away the things that you love. I'm not saying take away, but just add in 2 extra glasses of water. Fresh fiber first. Does anybody juice or blend or? Awesome. So you can get like dark leafy greens. You could do, some low glycemic berries, but if you do fresh fiber first, actually the good bacteria in our gut love to eat fiber and omega-3. The gram-negative bacteria, the yeast and the fungi love to eat sugar. Cancer loves to eat sugar. See what I'm saying? So, on our immune system cells, actually, the reason why they say vitamin C works is because it actually competes with sugar for the receptor site. But the thing is to not eat as much sugar, but it's hard. You know what I mean? Like, I love my organic mangoes. Like, my dried mangoes, it's like my crack. You know what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? So I love them, you know what I mean? And it stimulates my brain, man. So, I don't want to say I'm never never is a strong word. Don't use that. I'm telling you, start by adding, don't take away. Okay, so if you can start with just some of these just general tips and start by adding, don't take away. Think progress, not perfection. Check the QR codes to get more information. If you want more information, if you want information on how to make lifestyle changes, we actually host educational workshops in our office that are like 45 to an hour long. I'm doing a mental health workshop on Tuesday night. I'm speaking for 100 teachers on Wednesday on mental health, but if you have any questions on that, I can try to give you some tips. I actually created a 45-minute audio to give you some information on mental health. That's on that handout that we have. So I definitely want to, what would be the best way to get the handout to everyone? Would it be to hand it to them, like pass it around? Or? Cool, so I'll just show it to them really quick. So so here's the handout, and you'll see like follow-up tips from the workshop, free resources, and then there's other things right here, the podcast, emotional headspace audio, and then we do specialize in pediatrics, so if you want some information on that, like a holistic approach to adaptability and stuff like that's on there too. So, yes?
You as a doctor and the doctor here, it was a study on 60 Minutes last Sunday about the AI.
HFA, what's it? Oh, artificial intelligence?
Right.
Okay.
So I was wondering, you're using that, as you say, in your office?
Yeah,
Are you
it's part of what we do.
As far as AI goes?
Yes.
I mean, listen, you can have AI actually print out a bunch of information, and you can type something in, they can spit things out, so I've looked into that stuff. But as far as, I have another doctor that works with me. If you guys show up and there's a robot there ready to work on you, hey, listen, then I'm home like chilling, and I'm like, with the AI, no, but I'm joking. But no, I mean, look, I think there's a place, of course, for everything. We love technology. In our office, we're high tech, but we're high touch. Because I feel like that's a lost art also. Look, if you have a specific question about your case, really the best thing to do is actually come in for a consultation where we can go over, hey, listen, how is this affecting your quality of life? That's really what we do. We sit down, knee to knee, and then we do an objective evaluation to really see what's going on with you. I was asked to come here because I was seen speaking at another church, and just in a short amount of time, just to try to give you a little inspiration to wake up about your health, because health really is your most important asset. Without your health, nothing else really matters. But really, if you want to take your health to the next level, you can try, and this is what I've learned from speaking. I don't want you to sit for a workshop and be like, oh, well, the only action step was to go into the office. That's why I created all this. I put a lot of effort into this so that you can, on your own, try to work on it, because you really are your best advocate, right? No one's coming to save you when it comes to your health. You got to take self-responsibility, okay? But if you do have specific problems, the best thing to do is to come in. But as far as AI in our office, I've looked into what it can do as far as spitting out information. You can type things in there. It's just amazing with the information that they can pull together. So in that regard, but
You're in Long Island?
I'm in Oceanside. It's 30 minutes away from here, 35 minutes. So 15 minutes out of Queens in Oceanside, yeah. Yeah.
All right, time is against us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What a plethora of information. I'm so glad that you touched on the mental health aspect of all of this, because that is key. That is key. Thank you so much. We got to get ourselves together. We got to get it together. We got to get it together. So much information that's coming to us. I hope that we apply it. I mean, the flyer itself, he's given us the opportunity to walk into his office. via the code. So let's do that. Let's make sure we get our breasts checked. Let's make sure the men get their biceps and everything checked out for themselves, right? So we're gonna move, because we have such a great panel. Thank you so much. Full of information. How many remember in the summertime we had this strange smell in the air and we were all like, what's going on? What's going on? Some people thought it was doom and gloom. They thought they saw the devil coming and it was time for our maker to come. So we're going to talk today, and we have a young lady, Catherine. You ready? She's going to talk to us about air quality, something that we used to didn't talk about, but now it's the big topic. And cold season preparation for those who still have their ACs in the window. You're on, Catherine. One, two.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Hello. How's everyone feeling? I just want to be sure I don't. Sorry, thank you. So before I start, I think I'm gonna practice. Okay, got this. So we spoke about risk factors, we talked about gender, we talked about age with breast cancer, and I'm here to tell you about another one that is climate. And to go a little bit further, zip code is a risk factor too. So I do have a presentation that I'd love to share with you just because there's some graphs I'd like to explain through. But in general, I'll be discussing information on air quality in New York, as well as health effects of air pollution, and deciding when and what precautions to take. So, with that, yes, sir.
Media?
Sorry. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. I can just talk through it. Okay, yeah, let's do it. Sorry about that. Okay. So, something that a lot of people do not know is that the air quality in NYC has been improving, which is interesting. We can discuss this further. But the reason why they say that is because there are monitors placed throughout the city, and there is an annual study called the NYC Community Air Survey. So this data collection has been going on since 2008, and there have been improvements. For instance, there have been decreases in particulate matter, nitrogen oxide, and since the data collection has started. So there is a link to see a summary of the report, and with that, if you come by my table, we can go on your phone, we can put in your zip code, and we can walk through the summary report, because I believe everyone should know their risk factors, their community health profile, and take all the tips from all of our panelists on like how we can be safer. So, on top of that, there is also real-time data of New York City air quality on our environmental health data portal as well. And so the data portal is a great resource for looking at information not just on air pollution. You can also see trash, asthma rates, rats, and lots more. And so there are a lot of different sources of pollution. One of them being, yes, buildings, also transportation, as we see outside from highways, that impacts us as well. And another thing people don't realize is that there is indoor air pollution, and that occurs when you're burning incense, for instance. I like to burn my palo santo, you know. And there's also some cooking as well that happens. And then also, what can impact air quality is wind and blowing pollution from other places as well that we saw during the Canadian wildfires. So, I'll get there, don't worry. So the main thing about air pollution is breathing, and it's the small particulates that can get trapped and enter into your bloodstream, which is why it's terrifying. And just to like visualize what that looks like, imagine you have a pencil and you just like go like this. It's even smaller than that. So that can enter your bloodstream, and it can enter other parts such as your health, yes, but your heart. And so you can see some short-term health effects such as coughing, tightness in the chest, and it can also worsen asthma that you may already feel. So the potential long-term effects is reduced lung function, as well as increased heart attack and stroke, and also low birth weight in newborns. So I'm gonna go a little bit off the script here and say, just share, because this is not health department advice necessarily, but some like Native American knowledge on some plants that are out there that can help you. I recommend sage. So what you can do is make a tincture. You dry the sage leaves, then you put it in some alcohol, you leave it in for 2 weeks, and then you can actually make a liquid sample that you can put in hot tea or any type of beverage. I do recommend that. My mom used to do that. And other inflammation like type of foods such as ginger, turmeric, acerola, or West Indian cherries, I believe they're called, as well as dark chocolate. So that is something that can, I know for sure sage helps with asthma, so just want to leave with that. And then, additionally, going on, so there is an EPA air quality index, and how it looks like essentially is that it goes from red down to yellow down to green. And so that means green, good, right? Or go in driving. Unhealthy for sensitive groups. Then there's levels where it's like red, which means do not go outside, right? At any given point, you can have a different air quality index, AQI, for different pollutants. So why is that? Why don't go outside? Because again, it's going back to the particulate matter, the pencils. Just think of that, right? That will enter your bloodstream, and then that's where you'll get problems. So if you come by my table, I would love to walk you through a website called Air Now. AIRNOW. Air Now. And what that does, it tells you the current air quality where you are by zip code, because not everywhere has a different exposure level, so I think it's really important that everyone knows what theirs is. And so it's a reliable place to look and find information about air quality. So, I know it's the moment you've all been waiting for. It's the wildfire smoke, right? Okay, that was crazy. That was scary. So what happened as a result is the Department of Health developed 2 different air quality index guidance. And so one is for general public, and one is specific to childcare, to, if your child is in camp or school, like what should they do, keep your child safe. And then the structure of both document break down recommendations by AQI level. Again, going back to the green, back to the red. So here's the thing. The recommendations, yes, monitor yourself, monitor your symptoms, definitely. Limit the time you spend outdoors, and reducing your level of activity while outside, because that's just, you want to go inside because, again, imagine the pencil dots coming into your skin. And then especially if you are immunocompromised, you have asthma, and you're pregnant, if you're 65 or older. So the documents are meant to help guide people as they're making decisions for when there's poor air quality. And there's not one case fits all. Everyone's different. We all live in different locations, so that's why I strongly recommend getting to know the Air Now. And so some precautions that you can take when the air quality is terrible outside. The biggest one is stay indoors unless it's super hot outside and you don't have AC, I do have recommendations if you are in that situation. But in general, staying inside is the best way to limit exposure to outdoor air pollution. I'm trying at a rate. So, okay, if there ever is a situation, I'm going off the script again. So, if there ever is a situation where it's like the wildfire, what you have to do, that I know from my friends in California and indigenous knowledge, is drink lots of water, a lot of water. And also, the plant is called thyme, and what you do is you put it into a bowl of hot water, and then you just like breathe in the fumes. And that's actually gonna help if you're in a very extreme situation like that. And then if you don't feel like doing that, you can always go to CVS and buy nasal spray. So if there ever is a apocalyptic situation again, there are those options. So, yes, so again, there are some precautions. Listening to your body is a good way to assess if you need to call 911 or what's going on. And again, if you have a scratchy throat, headache, burning eyes, coughing, or any other short-term health effects, try to find somewhere with cleaner air. And it's especially important to take precautions if you have heart or breathing condition. So again, call Notify NYC. That's hosted by Emergency Management. It provides alerts during air quality events, heat waves, flooding. You know, it can be a great resource. I hope, come to my table if you want to walk through that. I don't mind doing it. I would feel so much better if everyone in this room is, you know, with Notify NYC. I'll sleep better at night. So I was a former emergency manager, and I hate getting those calls. So yeah, thank you so much. Please stay safe. That's my presentation, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for giving us that information, because I'm sure none of us paid attention to it. I'm just going to keep it real. We never really paid, because we just were always told that, you know, New York City was polluted. And we just adapted to it being polluted. And then this happened, and now we're all paying attention. So sometimes things have to happen so we can pay attention to it. So thank you. Thank you so much. Now we will call Dr. Maurice Henson, Comprehensive Health Issues, Power, and you have a PowerPoint?
Yes.
You're good with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. Good afternoon. All right, once again, my name is Dr. Maurice Henson. I'm a general internist by training, which means I can take care of you in the hospital if you're admitted, or I could be your PCP. All right. Do we have the presentation? All right, so today I'm going to talk about the truth about chronic disease. All right, because many of us, most of us, doctors included, have been misinformed about how to approach chronic disease. And what we're learning, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, is that the information lies in the inflammation. Okay, next slide. So I always include a slide about myself for several reasons. One, because my talks tend to be a bit unconventional, so just so you know you're not listening to a quack, I'm going to show you that I am certified, okay? The second reason is you need to know who's speaking to you and who you're getting information from, all right? So I got my degree in neuroscience from Johns Hopkins, then went back to Philly where I'm from to get my medical degree at Drexel, and I trained right here in New York City at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell in internal medicine. And since then, I've worked as a hospitalist for the most part, but as of last year, I launched MetaRoots Medical Group, which focuses on delivering high-quality primary care, because if we can stop you from getting to the hospital and being admitted to the hospital, I think that we're actually getting somewhere, okay? Next slide. So we have several objectives. One, to briefly discuss the state of the American healthcare system. To highlight the endocrine system, I was asked to speak specifically about the endocrine system and some of its common disorders. Reveal the role of chronic inflammation in the development and management of disease. And discuss ways that we can reduce chronic inflammation. All right, next slide. So we talked about this, and you heard this, and you all know this, that our healthcare system has largely failed us. Okay, next slide. Not only do we spend twice the amount on healthcare compared to the average comparable developed country, but next slide, we have the highest burden of chronic disease. Next slide. And we have the lowest life expectancy of our comparable countries. Okay? Now, if you notice, and I wish I had a pointer, but I highlighted USA here. This is 2019. This is pre-COVID. The three data points is 2010, 2015, 2019. The good doc said earlier that our children likely won't outlive us, right? The US is the only country whose life expectancy was decreasing over the course of those 10 years, whereas every other country was increasing, okay? So there's something that we're either doing too much of or something that we're not doing at all, okay? But next slide. But forget the system. Why are we so sick, right? The first is because we choose convenience and instant gratification. We don't want to hear this, but you need to hear this. It's not the system's fault when we choose to go into fast food restaurants and Chinese restaurants and liquor stores and smoke shops and volunteer our money to receive their poison. That's called suicide, right? When you consume something that you know will kill you, what is that called? Suicide. That's not their fault. Second thing, we live an unnatural lifestyle. Okay? Who told you that you need to eat 3 times a day? Who told you it was normal to eat the types of food that we're eating today and the amount that we're eating today? Who told you it was normal to work all these hours and not see the sun? Right? The way we live is not natural, so we're sick. And the third and most important reason is our complete disregard for God and the understanding of our divine nature when it comes to our health. Conventional medicine doesn't even include God. And we are spiritual beings in a physical vessel, so our spiritual element is the most important component of our lives, but we completely disregard it. We've got all this religion and no real understanding about God. Because if you understood God, then you will understand that you are a living God, made in His likeness, with the ability to create, to manifest, and most certainly to change the state of your health. Next slide. So we're going to talk about this again within the context of endocrine disorders, all right? Mainly diabetes and a little bit about hypo and hyperthyroid, but diabetes specifically because it tends to be one of the most prevalent chronic diseases. And then when you understand the basis of diabetes, then you'll understand pretty much the basis of all chronic disease entirely. Okay, next slide. So our endocrine system involves the body's hormones and their biological function, okay? And they pretty much control every element, every physiologic element within our bodies, okay? From metabolism down to body temperature, sexual and reproductive function, so on and so forth, okay? And there are a number of different organs that secrete these hormones that impact the body. Next slide. So let's talk specifically about diabetes. Next. So there are essentially 3 types. I mean, there are more, but we talk about 3 types. Type 1, type 2, and gestational. Gestational you get, or women are at risk for during pregnancy. Having type 2 diabetes is a risk factor, and it also increases your risk thereafter. But the overwhelming majority of diabetes in this country is type 2, okay? Type 1 diabetes has to do with not making enough insulin. Insulin is the hormone that tells the body's cells, okay, there's sugar available, let's take in some of that sugar from out the blood, okay? Type 2 diabetes has to do with insulin resistance, all right? So the pancreas, which is the organ that produces insulin, is still pumping out insulin, but the body's just not responding to it the same way, okay? It's resisting the insulin, okay? And therefore, the insulin is not working as well, and that sugar remains in the bloodstream, which is when we detect it and say, hey, your sugar's high, okay? Next slide. What we know is that the prevalence of diabetes is increasing, almost exponentially, okay? Next slide. But why? Okay, everything come up. So this was animated, came up in at different points, but I'll explain it, okay? Because we all know diabetes to be about sugar, right? We even call it the sugar, right? But is it really about the sugar? All right, the first graph that was to come up showed that the consumption of sugar has actually decreased over the last 20 years. But the prevalence of diabetes has increased. So it's not the sugar, right? What has increased along with diabetes? Meat consumption, okay? And we all point at beef and pork, but the one that's increasing the most is chicken, okay? What else is increasing along with diabetes? Dairy consumption. Specifically cheese. I know we all love cheese. We all love cheese. There's a reason why you love cheese. Most of you are addicted to cheese and don't even know it. Right? There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. When they process milk into cheese, there's a protein in milk called casein. When casein is metabolized by the body, it becomes casomorphin. Sound familiar? Morphine. It has a very similar structure to morphine and exerts similar effects. So you can become addicted to cheese. All right? So diabetes, next slide. Diabetes is not a disease of too much sugar. Diabetes is a disease of too much inflammation. Okay? Now, I'm not exonerating sugar at all. It's still terrible, okay? Because sugar, at the end of the day, downstream increases inflammation. But it's inflammation, chronic inflammation, that's central to the development of diabetes by way of insulin resistance. I don't have a pointer here, but if you see the top right red box, it says insulin resistance. Prior to that is systemic inflammation. Then goes hyperglycemia, elevated blood sugar. That's when we detect your diabetes. But look what happens far earlier than the elevated blood sugar. The insulin resistance and the systemic inflammation. So again, you address the inflammation, you eliminate the diabetes. Okay? Next slide. So this is just to reiterate the point that virtually all chronic disease is due to chronic inflammation. Okay? That's high blood pressure, that's diabetes, that's obesity, that's depression, anxiety, that's dementia, that's cancer. We are learning, and we didn't learn this in med school, but we're learning it now, that chronic inflammation is not bad. It's a protective process. But when it happens too much and too often, then it becomes a problem, because anything in excess is a problem. You could drink too much water and it'll be a problem. Trust me, I've treated people who drank themselves to death, literally. Okay, next slide. Many of you probably know this brother here. This is Alfredo Dr. Sabi Bowman. He used to tell us 40 years ago that mucus is the cause of every disease. You eliminate the mucus, you eliminate the disease. He was telling us something even then. Because where does mucus come from? More than that. In general, where does mucus come from? Mucus is a byproduct of inflammation. He was telling us something. Okay, next slide. So there are essentially three main reasons, three main drivers for chronic inflammation. We talked about one earlier, chronic stress. All right? Because the body primes itself for times where we have to fight or run as evolutionary. All right, so it produces another hormone, a different hormone called cortisol. It's a steroid hormone, okay? It also releases norepinephrine, which is a neurotransmitter. Now, in the acute setting, cortisol and norepinephrine actually suppress the immune system. But when the body senses it for too long, it actually increases inflammation. It tips the scale the other way, okay? The next thing, I call it harmful consumptives, okay? Things that we consume. Toxic air, we talked about it earlier. Every day, we breathe in and out toxic air. So it's no wonder why lung cancer is the leading cancer for death in the US, right? Food. This ultra-processed food. The high fructose corn syrup, these pro-inflammatory foods. So there's no surprise why colon cancer overall is the second leading cause of cancer-related deaths when you combine men and women, okay? And then the third part I coined as poor flow. So poor blood flow, poor lymphatic flow. Poor chi, prana, ka, that's the spiritual energy, right? This is where things like getting an adjustment is helpful. Aligning the body so that things flow right. This is where massage therapy is helpful, right? Because what happens when you're stressed? Your muscles tense up, right? We know we'll get it here, but you know that happens throughout your entire body, even down to your deep muscle. Your nerves, your blood vessels, your lymphatic vessels, many of them run through your muscle. So when your muscle contracts, it impedes the flow of these elements. So you get buildup of toxins. And those toxins cause inflammation. And when that happens throughout the body, it's called systemic inflammation and becomes chronic inflammation. And there we have the disease, right? Next slide. Hypothyroid and hyperthyroid. And this is quick because the point is pretty much the same. Next slide, please. The leading cause for hypothyroid or low thyroid is Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It's an autoimmune disease. What's the basis of autoimmune disease? Inflammation. Okay. The other reason is for iodine deficiency. We talked about is either a toxin or is a deficiency. So iodine deficiency is the second leading cause for low thyroid, and it has a number of different physiologic effects. You know, you might always be tired, you might be putting on weight and your diet hasn't changed, you might be having sexual issues. It could be related to your thyroid. Next slide. Hyperthyroid. The leading cause for hyperthyroid is Graves' disease. What's Graves' disease? An autoimmune disease. What's the basis for autoimmune disease? Inflammation. Okay? So again, the underlying reason for these pathologies, for these disorders is the same thing as chronic inflammation. Next slide. And this is just a schematic showing you the outcome of chronic inflammation in different organ systems. You see neurologic disease, we talked about dementia, okay? In the pancreas, it causes diabetes. In the lungs, it causes asthma, COPD. Okay? Next slide. So how do we reduce chronic inflammation? And I wish I didn't show it just yet because I wanted to come in with an oomph, right? But with all the education, all the training, all the experience that I've gained, all the medications that are available, the best thing that I could tell you to do in order to rid yourself of the inflammation and improve the state of your health is to do nothing at all. Fast. Okay? Fasting throughout history has been utilized. Actually, it was probably second to prayer. It was probably the next leading spiritual tool that's written in the Bible, right? Moses fasted for 40 days, and then at the end of it, he got the 10 Commandments. Jesus fasted for 40 days, and then at the end of it, he realized what his purpose in life was. Fasting also has incredible benefits when it comes to your health, reducing the inflammation. Next slide. These are some of the therapeutic benefits of fasting. Okay? Again, reduces the inflammation, restores a healthy gut. We're learning more and more how the bacteria in our gut play into our health. All right? Play into our mood. All right? We talked about the sympathetic overdrive. Well, it increases parasympathetic activity, which does the rest, digest, and relaxation that we heard earlier. Okay? It decreases weight by way of reducing fat. So when you don't consume calories and you're not burning sugar, you begin to burn fat as a source of energy. Okay? It increases lean muscle mass, reduces insulin resistance, improves neurocognitive function. Now, this one I need to highlight also, because what we found is after 24 hours of fasting, just 24 hours, your body produces a peptide called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. What this does is it causes the generation of new brain cells. Okay, mainly in your hippocampal region, which is responsible for the storage, processing, and recollection of memory, and your prefrontal cortex, which is the area of the brain which separates us from the primates, okay, which affords us our divine nature. If you go through the Bible, there's allusions to the prefrontal cortex, okay? Just 24 hours of fasting. Now, I'm not asking you to do 24 hours of fasting either. Next slide. We're learning that intermittent fasting has many of the same benefits as the long-term fasting. So by intermittent fasting means that you consume during a window period, all right? Most are 8-hour windows. So say, for example, from noon to 8 p.m., that's when you have all your meals, okay? I follow an 18-6. So for 6 hours, I'll eat from noon to 6. So I didn't eat breakfast, right? I break fast at noon. That's what breakfast means, right? You're breaking fast, right? So again, where we come up with this idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. No, it's not. No, it's not. The most important meal of the day is the one that you eat. Right? And what we're learning is that when it comes to weight loss, it's not just about how much you eat, but also when you eat, okay? Because insulin resistance is also the result of chronic insulin exposure. So if you're eating 3, 4, 5 times a day, all day, into the night, your body is constantly exposed to insulin and therefore stops responding the same way. So if you restrict yourself to eating during this window period, you enhance your body's sensitivity to the insulin. This makes sense? All right, next slide. And the remainder, when you do eat, reducing pro-inflammatory foods, all right, heavy meats. We evolved to be able to eat meat, but not all the meat that we're eating today, okay? All right, dairy. Yeah, have we evolved to be able to tolerate dairy? Sure, but you know that black people and Asian people can be up to 75 to 80% lactose intolerant? Lactose intolerance is not a benign thing. They pass it off like, oh, it's just a little bit of gas. But you know what that's telling you? Yeah, you're not digesting it. It's not normal. It's causing inflammation in your gut. Okay? So get away from the dairy. I know it's hard. The cheese is hard. Listen, it was hard for me. I know. Listen, it's hard. I understand. Trust me. Hydrate. because I know my time is running. Hydrate, 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 okay? I used to think that I was good with water. Most days I would drink like up to a gallon, but I did the body composition and I was only like 58% body water. We should be somewhere around 65, pushing 70. So even I was dehydrated, you know, and I have a theory for this. I haven't proven it. I don't know if anyone has, but the water that we drink, that we have access to, is not the most hydrating type of water, okay? Tap water, bottled water, anytime man touches something, we reduce its nutritional value, okay? So the real sources of high energy water, rainwater, spring water, and the water that you get in fruits and vegetables. The problem is you can't put a bucket outside and collect rainwater because it's full of toxins now, all right? We don't have the bacteria now to be able to go to a spring and drink from the spring. We'll get sick, you'll die of diarrhea. So the best sources, the best sources of high energy water I find are in fruits and vegetables. Okay, this is why the consumption of produce is so beneficial to our health, because not only does it provide the water and the nutrients, but also the fiber that we talked about earlier. Okay. Supplement with anti-inflammatory plants and herbs. So I'm a big fan of sea moss. Again, Dr. Sabi is the one who sort of exposed the world to sea moss, black seed oil. Okay, and Genera percumbens. Most of you probably haven't heard of this, but this is actually one of my favorite plants. It's called longevity spinach. All right, it's very easy to grow. I grow it at home myself. It tastes good. It's like a milder spinach, but it lowers your blood pressure, lowers your cholesterol. All right, it increases insulin sensitivity. All right, this is why they call it the longevity spinach. Incorporating the quote-unquote alternative therapies, the chiropractic, the massage therapy, the acupuncture. It's only alternative to this healthcare system. These are traditional practices that have been in existence for thousands of years, and we have to get back to it. Okay? We have to get back to it. And lastly, seeking therapy. All right, we talked about it earlier. Mental health is a huge component to our being, and many of us neglect that element. So seek therapy for better stress coping mechanisms. I'm a big fan of diaphragmatic breathing. You could do it, you don't have to pay for it. What that is breathing into your belly, okay? Most of us breathe into our chest, but breathing into your belly. Why? Because that increases your parasympathetic system by way of the vagus nerve. We spoke about that earlier, okay? So by breathing into your belly, you reduce your heart rate, you reduce your blood pressure, you reduce your cortisol levels, okay? And lastly, sound healing. Another big fan of sound healing. This is actually just listening to specific frequencies, all right? We've known for thousands of years that certain frequencies of sound elicit therapeutic benefits, all right? 432 hertz and 528 are the ones that I use. 528 is called the love frequency. After 30 minutes of listening to it, and this is scientifically proven, it increases oxytocin levels. Oxytocin is the hormone that creates the bond between mom and baby, all right? Oxytocin is what you release when you orgasm to create that bond with your partner, all right? So when that increases, your cortisol drops, all right? Cortisol, again, was that stress hormone, all right? So we have ways that we can do it, and it costs you nothing to fast. All right, but I appreciate your time, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you, doctor. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I mean, that was a lot. That was a lot to unpack. That was a lot to digest. But one thing I know, inflammation, inflammation, inflammation. So get the information, and apply it, apply it, apply it. I am so wild with this panel, and we are really just going in. I'm going to do a 20-minute break. I'm sorry, Lisa and my other young lady. We're going to do a 20-minute break. I think for that 20 minutes, if you would like, we got a fit with Stevie. So you can sit and do a little exercise, or you can go to the tables, or you can go have a snack. Make sure you have your red ticket for snacks, and that's downstairs on the lower level. Yes. And we have vendors downstairs as well. Somebody got a big setup down there. Please go down and check the vendors downstairs. They got all kind of machines downstairs. But I want to thank the panel thus far. Please come back in 20 minutes and we will continue. Or so for vendors, you guys can move as you want. But for vendors, we have Community Climate. We have Dr. Tassi. I don't know if you're tabling. We have Crystal Matthews, if you're tabling. We have Dr. Morris Henson. I believe he's tabling here. We have Lisa Baxter. She's tabling over here. We have Hope for Outreach Christian Center. Give it up for us because we got our table. Listen. We have a multitude of services here. We have our Bible college, and I am one of the professors. If you are looking to sign up, we teach psychology, we teach mental health, because we know it's important for our mental health to be good for God. So you can see anybody in some black shirts. You can ask for information over here, and they will send you to the right people. We have our own table. You can still...
Good afternoon, everybody. Grace and peace. Good afternoon.